The fact that it certainly does not meet the test of inclusivity, and it includes people who have very challenging track records.
Challenging track records, inclusivity? That was U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken admitting that the new Taliban government, which the Biden administration relied on to evacuate Americans from Afghanistan after Kabul's fall, may not be trustworthy after all. My next guest says the White House knew this all along and has been lying to the American people. Joining me right now is Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. He is a decorated military veteran who was embedded with 66 different units over 17 years. It is an honor to have you here this morning, sir. Thanks very much for being here, Colonel North.
Maria, good to be with you. Wonderful interview you just did with two very important people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You are in touch with the National Resistance Front in Afghanistan. I want to ask you your thoughts on what's going on now. What can you tell us in terms of new information? U.S. citizens, allies, are they being held hostage? Because I know, sir, we didn't just leave Americans on the ground in Afghanistan. We left Brits, Canadians, Ukrainians, Europeans, and other allies that have helped us along the way for 20 years.
I spent yesterday, Maria, as you and I talked, with the veterans of this war, Gold Star families, those who had been there when this whole incredibly aborted operation took place. And everybody wants one thing, and that's accountability. Hopefully there's going to be accountability as to why they gave away Bagram, one of the best military bases in the world. In fact, I know the engineer who built it. The Russians started it, we finished it. It was one of the finest military operations installations in the world. There was intelligence collection, there was a main base, easily defended, all the kinds of surveillance you would need to protect it with a relatively modest number of troops. Why did they give it away? It wasn't taken by the Taliban, it was given to the Taliban. And you showed some of the footage of the cash that was left there, the $84 billion worth of weapons, most of which were stored at Bagram. All of that left behind, none of it destroyed. When you look at that cachet that we gave to the Taliban, and it's not just the Taliban, it's ISIS, it's Al-Qaeda, it's the Haqqani organization, they are all one. And right at this very minute, Maria, they are sitting in the presidential palace in downtown Kabul, going through information that the GRU from Russia and the Communist Chinese Intelligence Service is helping to collect on targeting those who are our allies. And as you pointed out, we still have NATO allies with people left behind. The promise was, at the very beginning of this, no Americans left behind. It was a blatant lie. And there's so much anger out there. You know, today's Sunday. In the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." Well, I'm not there yet, and neither are they. And they want accountability. And when Blinken goes up to the Capitol tomorrow, the building right behind me, when he comes up to the Capitol tomorrow, I hope that Congressman McCall and people like Mike Waltz, let me just very quickly describe. I'm on the phone with Mike Waltz. I'm on the other phone with a U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel inside the wall at Hamid Karzai International Airport. And we're trying to get a group of about 160 American citizens, green card holders, and SIVs, people hold a special immigrant visa. They've worked with us over the 20 years. And it's right outside. The lieutenant colonel says, if I could reach through this gate, I could touch the bus that they're on. And Mike and I were on the phone, and he called the White House. And Mike got the White House General Counsel, who said, I've talked to the president. It's going to be open. And 5 minutes later, there's one of these phony calls that there's going to be an imminent attack. Everybody spread out, get away from the gates. That kind of thing happened dozens of times, and it wasn't a real attack. In fact, the real attack that killed the last 13 Americans killed in this long war, they had no warning coming for them. That's the kind of thing that happened repeatedly throughout this, and they want accountability. The families, the Gold Star families, all of them deserve accountability.
Absolutely, they sure do, and they are in our prayers every day. What about these flights going out of Afghanistan? I mean, it was so disgusting to see Anthony Blinken in that press conference recently tell us that the Taliban is stopping the flights from leaving because they don't have the right documentation. Are you kidding me? And now he says the 2 flights have gone. But you and I spoke this weekend about who's on those flights going back into Afghanistan. Are these wannabe terrorists?
Well, remember, we're being told by the State Department and by Blinken himself that there's Americans being rescued coming out on those flights and flying to Doha, Qatar. And in fact, you can see the airplanes flying off the airfield. By the way, we don't have any American correspondents left on the ground. There's nobody of ours, for example, from Fox News, like I spent 17 years coming and going out of this place. If those flights had Americans on them, who were they and what are their names? We've yet to hear from anybody who was one of those flights. Many of us suspect that what we're going to get is at some point the so-called business-like Taliban are going to give us the names of people who they sent out, and we're going to be, let's call it the Stockholm Syndrome. They're going to say nice things about the Taliban, nice things about how the State Department got them out. There are over hundreds of Americans left on the ground inside Afghanistan. We don't know all their names. We don't know all of them. They keep saying if they wanted to get out, they could have gotten out. That's just not true. There were Americans around the gates of Hamid Karzai International Airport who could not get out, and we're now still trying to get out. And the folks that are on the ground out there, incredibly brave, many of them former veterans from Afghanistan, trying to get out of the country.
Colonel, we only have a few seconds here. Just tell me about China. Are they negotiating a status of forces agreement right now to acquire Bagram? That Bagram Air Base, you told me, has more sensors. It's so technologically advanced, more sensors than the entire island of Manhattan. Real quick.
Very, very true. And by the way, they have a copy of the status of forces agreement, the SOFA, that we did with the previous government. All they have to do is change the words U.S. and put PRC in it, and they've got themselves a status of forces agreement for the best base in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colonel, thank you so much. Colonel, you got to come back very soon. We need to continue this conversation. Colonel Oliver North. We'll be right back.